Hey guys, it's Cousin Benny coming to you on February the 10th with a look at the week ahead and a short watch list. Looking at the S&P 500, we broke out of this little pattern that we put in over the last few days. We had this broadening top, the cyan lines, just above this point and figure level, which is also the 127 extension. Thereabouts 1496. We also had the 1618 up at 1523.96 just overhead with point and figure resistance at 1525.01. We have rising moving averages, so things continue to look good. The fibs are from this low that we put in December to this area where we flagged and we broke higher, which is also coincident with that 13 we put in on the D mark. We've since put in another 9 since January 16th, but we haven't put in an additional 9. We failed in here. The idea is that you take 4 candles previous, and that close has to be above that. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. This close is below that. One could debate that we would look at this candle. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The close here is below the close here. So we failed on that additional 9 count on the D mark. And note stochastics is still overbought for the entire month of January and the first few days of February. Looking at the Qs, we can see that we have this uptrend that we're still in. And if we zoom in here, you can see where we are presently, and that we've also broken above this level here. Okay, so we're looking pretty good on the Qs, and stochastics is starting to break above. If you draw a horizontal line here, we've broken above that portion. Okay, if we turn on the Bollinger Bands, you can see that we have broken above the upper Bollinger Band. So keep in mind that this could reverse back to the mean, the 20 period or the 10 period, so you have to keep that in mind. But we have all this room up above where we could conceivably trade higher. So we can see, drawing a parallel here, we've had this nice sideways consolidation along the 10 period EMA, and now we're breaking higher out of this pattern. Taking a look at Apple, we can see that our high down to this consolidation area along 504, that the 1217 extension down here is where we moved down to, formed a triangle, and have since broken above that. We put in a doji on Friday, but check out the stochastics. We have room to move back up to this upper trend line. So we have to remember this 504 level now is going to be resistance. We had support here along this line. Now we're moving back up to that. We have this descending trend line in this channel, and we also have the support that we broke. So keep that in mind when trading Apple this week. Looking at the semiconductor index, we can see on the weekly that we had this nice trend that's continuing higher as we did on the Qs. Switching over to the daily, we can see that we're in quite an uptrend here that we have to keep an eye on as well. Okay, all of our moving averages are moving higher. And we're breaking above that upper trend line, switching back to the weekly, that we put in since 2007 and earlier. Okay, so we had 2007 pivot here, and we also had a 2004 pivot that we put in January. So we're breaking above that level depending on where you draw your trend line. So that's SMH. Let's take a look at some of my favorites in there. Taiwan Semiconductor is one that I posted on StockTwits. Okay, we've been stair-stepping up here, and this moving average looks very nice. Okay, we have a nice cup and handle pattern, and we broke above that. And since we're stepping up, and now we have another move higher out of this consolidation. Stochastics is reaching overbought, but we have a little bit of room that we could bust a little bit higher. Along with the other semis, Texas Instruments, note that this big cup and handle, W parent, with the W pattern inside. We are overbought on stochastics, but keep an eye on that for this week. And we might have another semi to trade off of once we build a nice handle here on the daily. Analog devices, another nice looking stock. We're overbought, but we need to keep an eye on this. I'd look for a move back down, stochastics to get lower again, and a move back down to this breakout level. WDC, Western Digital, is another one that I've been looking at. We're flagging out here just above the breakout level where we came in down and tested. We have a nice stochastic situation as well here. So keep an eye on WDC this week. I have no position. Also STX, which I like their hard drives better personally. We also have a nice pattern here, cup and handle. We came back and tested this breakout area. Stochastics is oversold though. NTAP looks pretty good as well. Just have to watch the fact that we're breaking this trend line, depending on where you draw it, of course. But our EMAs are sloping upwards, and our 50-period moving averages looks like it wants to flatten out. Stochastics is oversold, overbought, and moving lower. So let's keep an eye. Maybe we have some positive divergence here. We just move sideways and stochastics gets oversold. I also like Vornado. Their stock looked pretty good. And this nice uptrend broke above this descending channel. Okay, looks like it moved back down. Stochastics is cycling again. This is like a really good trade this week, depending on what happens. Just keep an eye on some of these previous highs. Looks like we've hit that first one already. Got a nice resistance area. Let's see how this plays out this week. We have this high up here that we have to be concerned about as a target. We draw some fibs on here from this low up to this recent high. You can see our 127 extensions up here just shy of 89. And the fact that we didn't come down to the 382, this area right here, is showing that this has quite a bit of strength, as you can tell by just looking at the EMAs, the MAs, and the trend. If we look at our sectors over the last 2 weeks, we can see that XLP, XLV, and XLU are outperforming, and finance is starting to taper off. XLY, XLK, and XLI are underperforming. I looked at the sectors again on StockTwits, and you have to pay attention to what's going on here with the IOIR, IYT breaking above resistance. We had to pull back the XLB, and if you look at the sectors that are doing the best, the top 5, you can see the Dow Jones Transportation Index is doing well, consumer staples, semiconductors, technology, and energy, and the bottom 5 here. Okay, so keep an eye on those. Teva, it's another one that I looked at this weekend. Looks pretty good. We have from this pivot down to this pivot here, we came right up to the 382, tagged that, and we pulled back a little bit. We have a descending 50 period, but the EMAs are starting to move higher. Okay, and we're breaking out of this pattern, so no stochastics where it is. We're approaching oversold, so we could get a shot to the 50 period depending on what happens on Monday. That's Teva, T-E-V-A. American Capital, I've been noticing this Kirby here for a few days. We had a nice move on Friday. I didn't have a position on it, but taking these fibs, you can see the 127 extension, if we break above here, is right between 32.80 and 33.20. And stochastics had a nice turn there on Thursday, Friday, after we tagged and had a nice little hammer off the 50 period moving average. That's AGNC. Again, you can check these out on my StockTwits stream. MGM had a nice pattern too. What I'm expecting here is a possible, this is the weekly chart, a possible move sideways to put in a cup and handle, or we could move up to this upper period of resistance and then build a handle up here by the 200 period. So these two scenarios I'm watching. We're overbought and we need a rest here. Caesars was also pretty crazy last week. CZR, so check that out. The Aussie Japanese yen pair, we're in this rising channel, which these tend to break to the downside, so keep an eye on that and the 50 period EMA right here. Okay, so if we do break down, stochastics is pointing lower. We have our fibs here that we put in, and we didn't make it up to the 127 extension. If this does continue to break down, that's bad for equities. Euro US dollar, this inverted head and shoulders that we broke out of and this ascending triangle pattern we did quite well off of. But note the stochastics and note the action that we saw last week. We do have a rising 50 period moving average to keep an eye on, as well as the breakout area that should be support if we come down to this area, which would also coincide with this trend line. So this looks almost too obvious as something to watch for this week and next. DBV, the power shares, it's another way of looking at the carry trade. We've hit resistance up here. I put in some fibs from this last pivot, and we conceivably could come back down to the 382 or the 50% level, which is right here at that rising moving average, 50 period. Stochastics is turning, so keep an eye on DBV as well as the Aussie JPY pair. Okay. Also remember, for you newer traders, I've been adding some tutorials to the strategy section of my site, theclosingprint.com. Okay, so just go to strategies, tutorials, and I've added a couple. One on fading the gaps, and another on trading the opening range, the first 30 minutes, and how you can perfect your trading by using those two. That was a shameless plug for my site. And if you don't have my stock twits or my Twitter information, you just click on these and you can follow me. And of course, GTO's site. Looking at the IYT, and I apologize for jumping around here, but my mind is focused on a lot of different things right now. Note the level up here that we've broken above, and just a couple of months ago this was really looking pretty bad, but we've rallied quite substantially over the last 3 months. So check out some of the stocks that trade in this index. You might find some gems. The one that pops into my head always is JBHT, JB Hunt. Yep, same pattern. See? Now if you'd been trading this off of the lows down here, you'd have been sitting pretty on JB Hunt. This is one I like to trade a lot. So that's going to do it for me. This is the hourly chart on the S&P 500. Watch this flag coming into this week. We had support down here at these trend lines and point and figure resistance or support, and we have point and figure resistance up above at 1525. The 1618 extension is right here at 1523.96, I believe. Alright, so that's going to do it for me for the weekend. Good luck this week. I hope this helps. Take care.